The blades of Artemis failed as well. The man in the large office asked the man on the other end of the phone. It appears that we severely underestimated our adversaries yet again, he said. I want the Titan program put into effect immediately, the man commanded and hung up the phone. The man turned to look out the window. He took a pill bottle from his pocket and popped one of the pills into his mouth. Calm yourself, he thought as he massaged his temple and felt his heart rate begin to calm itself. This will be resolved shortly, he thought with a satisfied smirk. Jessica reached the door to the training room after Brianna had gone inside. She ran in and turned as the doors shut behind her, leaving her in total darkness. Computer, Skyway City Street simulation. Brianna said from within the darkness. Jessica spun around and marveled as she watched the room light up and transform into an exact copy of downtown Skyway City. This is amazing, Jessica said. Sure is. State-of-the-art holographic technology that makes the holograms solid. So essentially everything in here is real. Brianna called out from her perch atop a light post at the end of the block. Jessica continued to look around. She was amazed that she could even feel the heat from the sun inside the simulated city. I'm gonna have to get a look at this technology close up, she said. You'll get a chance as soon as you regain consciousness. Arson said as she leaped into the air and rocketed toward Jessica, fists engulfed in flames. As she neared Jessica, she threw her first fiery punch which sailed over Jessica's ducking head. Gonna have to be quicker than that, honey, Jessica shouted with a giggle as she ran in the other direction of Arson. At least I'm not running away from the fight, Arson called after her as she hurled several fireballs at her foe. All exploding on the heels of Jessica's retreat. Not running, Jessica said as she neared the light post where Arson had been perched and leaped at it. Her hands charged with energy. And her feet encased in stone as she traveled through the air, causing the pole to rip from the concrete as she grabbed it as she passed by. Just getting a weapon, she finished as she swung the post at Arson, connecting with the young hero and sending her slamming into a wall across the street. Arson stayed on the ground for several moments before slowly getting to her feet. Still reeling from the blow. She didn't have time to react when Jessica hit her with an energy-charged uppercut square in the jaw, smashing her back into the wall and keeping her on the ground. That was fun, Jessica said as she sat down next to the unconscious girl. Ow. Arson mumbled as she slowly sat up, her mind in a fog. Sorry I had to beat you so bad. But I thought you could do with a good beating, Jessica said with a smile. Arson massaged her temples as the fog cleared from her head. I'm gonna want a rematch, you know, she said with a glare that was soon replaced by a smirk. Anytime, anyplace, Jessica said as she got to her feet and helped Arson to hers. Good. Arson said as she sucker-punched Jessica with a flaming fist and sent the diapered hero flying backward into a parked car, smashing the windshield and denting the hood considerably. You dirty little cheater, Jessica said as she massaged her jaw as she got off the car. Arson flew at Jessica and grabbed her and flew high into the air with her in tow. Happy landings, she said as she dropped her opponent. Jessica screamed as she plummeted to the ground, and watched as Arson flew to her quickly. When Arson got into range, Jessica gave her a hard kick to the stomach with a stony foot and took flight for herself, letting Arson take her place in a small crater in the concrete. Jessica stayed aloft for a moment before landing a few yards from the crater Arson had created. You never said you could fly, Arson mumbled as she shakily climbed out of the earth. Never said I couldn't, Jessica replied. Now, be a good girl and have enough sense to admit defeat before you get seriously hurt, she added. Arson nodded. Computer, end simulation, she said. The city scene disappeared and was again returned to the stark emptiness of the training room. Man, getting beat by you is just humiliating, Arson said after a long silence. Jessica stuck her tongue out at Arson. You know, you're like the little sister I never wanted, she said as she put her arm around Arson to support the wobbling girl. I'm the little sister, and you're the one in diapers, that makes sense, she said with a smile. The two left the training room laughing together. Their friendship blossoming with every word, even the insults. The room had the sweet scent of baby powder looming throughout it. The silence of the room was disturbed by the ripping of tape from plastic and the giggling of a woman. "My goodness, what a wet baby girl I have," Hannah said as she tickled her charge's tummy, getting another giggle. A knock at the door ceased the noise and movement in the room. "Hannah, are you in there? I wanted to talk to you," Jessica said from outside the door. Hannah looked at Elisa, who was shaking her head vigorously in protest of her saying anything. Hannah smiled at her sister. "I think we should tell her," she whispered. Elisa sucked her pacifier nervously and shook her head in protest again. "Come on in, Jess," Hannah said. The door opened, and the three women just looked at one another in silence for a long while. "You said you wanted to talk to me about something," Hannah said, finally breaking the silence as she proceeded with changing Elisa's diaper. What's going on?" Jessica managed to stammer out after much difficulty. "I'm getting Elisa ready for bed, wanna help?" Hannah asked. "I guess so," Jessica said and made her way slowly to the bed where the changing was occurring. Elisa blushed bright red and attempted to hide behind her stuffed bunny. "Oh, don't be shy, baby, say hello to Jessica." Hannah encouraged her sister as she moved the bunny from her face. "Hello, Jessica," Elisa said through her pacifier. "Hi, Elisa," Jessica said with a confused smile. "What happened to her?" she asked Hannah. "Nothing, she just likes to play baby sometimes," Hannah explained. "Don't you, Elisa?" she cooed to her sister. Elisa only nodded and blushed again. Hannah finished diapering Elisa and sat the young girl up and began dressing her in a light blue onesie with a baby duck embroidered on the breast. Jessica watched as Elisa was adorned with infantile clothing. Her blue hair was put into pigtails. And her transformation was complete. Hannah picked her sister up off of the bed and carried her on her hip into the adjoining room. Jessica followed behind the pair and had her eyes go wide as saucers when she saw the room she'd entered. The room looked just like a nursery for an infant. But everything was sized for an adult. Jessica wandered around and took in all of the sights of the room while Hannah lay Elisa down into the large crib to put her to bed. "Good night, my sweet angel," Hannah said as she kissed her hand and pressed the kiss to her sister's forehead gently. Hannah guided Jessica out of the room, turning on a nightlight before closing the door behind them as they left. "I'll bet you have a lot of questions," Hannah said. "I'm just trying to understand why she enjoys that," Jessica said. "When I moved out of our parents' house and here to Paragon, I was 18 and Elisa was 10. Elisa begged me to take her with me. Our parents were against it but wanted Elisa to be happy. So they agreed, and so did I, and Elisa and I got a place together. I got a job at the TerraVolta reactor when we got here and had the job for a little over 4 years before my powers emerged," Hannah explained. Jessica listened intently to Hannah's story until she felt a familiar squishy feeling in the seat of her diaper that signaled to her that she'd messed herself. She hoped that she could get out of the room before Hannah noticed, and tried to go back to listening to the story.